Hello, I'm T. Hoffman, and welcome to another lesson in the Proactive Practice Program. We're so glad that you're here again today. We're going to continue down the path of identifying your personal brand. And today we're going to talk about understanding your social style and how to actually utilize your social style. So let's get started. Now, social styles are something that you may be aware of, but as a general rule, this is not something that is taught in law school. However, if you've worked in other industries or business sectors, you may be familiar with these social styles. We're going to talk about the types of social styles, how they differentiate themselves one from another, how you can identify social styles and why that's important. We're going to talk about how to find your own social style, and there are some great resources. Please download the resources on the resources page, because one of those resources is a worksheet, and I definitely want to make sure that everybody completes this worksheet. I also want to make sure that you read the history of how these social styles were actually created, because I think that's important as well. And then I want you to understand how to utilize social styles, because if you can figure out how to utilize these social styles, you will be able to really close the gap that other people really leave wide open. And then we're going to talk about maximizing those styles in the future. So what is a social style? Well, a social style is, quite frankly, it's a behavior that you exhibit when you're interacting with other people. Now, you may not be, as I said earlier, aware of this behavior, but for example, if you are someone who is a highly analytical, extremely organized person, and you're quite critical of other people who aren't analytical and organized, you actually are exhibiting a social style. If you're highly empathetic, you want to get along with everybody, and you really look down on people who don't want to get along with everybody, they just want to get the facts and move forward, you're exhibiting a social style. So these things are something that we utilize, whether consciously or subconsciously, on an ongoing basis. These social styles were developed over 30 years ago by two scientists, and they studied 40,000 individuals to develop these social styles. And I will tell you, if you have an MBA, if you worked at any corporation, you probably are familiar with this social styles test. Again, please take the time to take the test that's in the resources page. So a social style is a psychometric, and a psychometric is like an IQ test, a personality test. It's something that is a measure of an individual, and it is an instrument that helps people understand each other better. It enables us to communicate better. It enables us to appreciate how they make decisions, and it enables us to better really understand their needs. So how do we use this as lawyers? Think about that for just a minute. If we can understand how our clients think and understand how they communicate, really read their communication style, then we can actually adjust our communication style in order to have more accurate and complete communication with them that they will actually appreciate. And so it's really important to understand what these social styles are. Now, these are designed, as I said earlier, to help you understand others better, but they also can be used to help you understand yourself better. Why do you do what you do? Why are you so obsessed with stacking versus putting things away in your office? Why do you want to get along with everybody? Why do you say yes to everything? All right. Why do you spend too much time on a particular project when you should just get to the answer because you know you can only bill a certain amount of time? It will help you understand those kinds of things. It will also help you build better relationships, not only with your peers, but also, as I said earlier, with your clients and also with your staff. It can help you in your personal relationships as well. So remember that. And it will also help you in responding to people. Once you can quickly ascertain someone's social style, I will tell you that you're able to adjust your communication slightly in order to better communicate with them. So it's really an important thing for you to master. Now, there are four particular social styles. There's the driver, the expressive, the amicable, and the analytical. And the social style that you happen to fall into, you'll usually have a dominant style and a secondary style. All right, so everybody may fit into more than one of these categories, but as a general rule, everybody has one dominant style. And once you figure out that style, I will tell you that you can pretty much predict that that person is going to stick with that style. It's interesting. I can tell you in my children, um, my son started out as a high analytical, but he was also, kind of a driver. He's now in the military. He does HR. He likes to analyze people and figure out where they belong in the military, but he's a driver and that he also wants to move up in the ranks. So different people have a combination of styles, but they generally have one particular style that is more dominant, and they usually will start to characterize that style as early as 5 to 6 years old. So if you think back, you may be able to identify your sibling styles or things like that. Now, behavioral studies like social styles are important because this information is a key to improving your performance. In fact, salespeople that use this particular model are able to close sales 8 times faster than those people who don't understand social styles. So I will tell you, if you can master this, this will help you along the pathway to success. And it doesn't matter what your personality style is. It doesn't matter what your SWOT says. You actually can utilize this to help you close the gap between creating relationships versus closing sales. It also can be used to determine, should I hire this particular person for this staff role? I'm now a leader in my law firm. Do I really want to hire somebody who is really highly analytical to do billing? Yes, probably so. But do I really want to hire somebody who's a huge analytical necessarily to do business development for me? Maybe not, because you may need a more amicable or expressive style for that particular job, or even a driver. So we'll talk about all those things in a few minutes. And it also can be used to build relationships in sales and improve your communication, as we already said. Now, these analytical, driving, amicable, and expressive styles are also designed to really tell you how assertive or responsive people are, or whether they want to be controlling, or whether they are more emotional. So as you look at analyticals and drivers, they want to be in control. And we're going to talk about this more in just a few minutes, where your amicables and expressives are just simply more emotional people. They tend to show their feelings. Your assertive and you're expressive, if you're somewhere in the middle, some people will ask. Your analyticals are asking questions. Your amicables are also asking questions because they want to know how you're doing. For example, where did you grow up? Your analyticals are going to want to know, how long have you lived here? How long have you been at that job? How long did it take you to finish law school? Your driving people are going to say, well, I finished law school in only 2.5 years. And your expressives are going to just talk about themselves. Okay, so it's kind of an interesting way to look at individuals. And there are some styles that, quite frankly, just don't get along as well as others. As you can imagine, probably someone who's really an amicable person and a driver, somebody who wants to be in control, versus somebody who's highly emotional, and somebody who wants to just give you the facts and tell you what to do, versus someone who wants you to hear them, may not get along so well. So, you have to adjust your style in order to get along with people. And that's really what we're going to talk about as we move through this exercise today. Now, what are some of the traits of a driver? Well, a driver at home is faster paced. They set things at a faster pace. They're not concerned about the value of relationships. And I would say this is at work as well. So, if you think about a CEO that just wants to get the bottom line profits increased, that is their whole strategy. They don't care how many people they cut, how many positions they cut, or how it affects the organization. They just want to make sure they maximize the company's profits. All right. They work in the present. We've got to get it done today. They direct actions where others actually might just follow them because really they're scared of them, I will tell you. And they avoid inaction. They will do things even if it's not the right thing just to show that they're acting. An amicable, on the other hand, is much slower paced in making decisions, not only in making decisions, but their communication style is simply slower. They will actually try to listen and relate to you, maybe even mirror back what you have said to them. They show concern. You know, if we let go so and so and so and so, they've been here 16 years. They're a really valuable part of the organization. I understand that they're already, 60 years old, but I still think they contribute to the organization. Where a driver might say, hey, they're old school, let's get them out of here. We can cut some expenses by letting them go. All right. They work also in the present time frame. So in other words, they're thinking about the present, but they also show support and they hate conflict. All right. So that's something interesting to remember as well. Expressives are faster paced. They talk at a fast pace. They try to get involved in everything. And we all know people like this. They're on every committee. They have to be at every networking event. All right. They may do terrible at follow-up, but they know everybody. All right. They show less concern for routine. They don't get to work at a certain time. They don't leave at a certain time. They have really no real regimented schedule. They work in the future. If it doesn't get done today, it's okay. I'll do it tomorrow. They don't have that sense of urgency, and they are more likely to take risks and act impulsively, and they will avoid isolation. They need to be around people all the time. They're not people you will catch eating dinner alone, for example. Your analyticals are also people who are somewhat slower paced, so they're not like expressives, but they want to be super, super organized. Your type A personalities generally are considered analyticals. They are slow to get into relationships. And the reason for that is because they literally are analyzing whether it's even a real relationship. And sometimes, to be quite honest with you, they don't even recognize a real relationship because they're analyzing everything about the relationship before they ever establish one. They work in a historical time frame, and by that I mean they want stage 1 to be done here, stage 2 to be done by this date, and the project to be complete by this date. Before they take any action, they will look at the facts, they will look at the figures, they will look at the data, they will see if there's a guarantee. All right, they want all of those things to have taken place because they're scared to make decisions, and they avoid personal involvement. They're not your practice group leaders. They're not people who are in charge of a committee or things like that. So those are your analyticals. So why is it important that you adapt to these people? Well, it's important because, believe it or not, you have clients and peers, and you're going to have co-workers, and you're going to have referral sources that fall into all 4 of these categories. So I've already asked you to fill out the worksheet and figure out where you are. But regardless of where you are, this should give you some information about how to relate and adapt to different people in the different styles. So if you have to come across, or if you do come across an analytical, and again, there's nothing wrong with any of these styles, believe me, everybody has a certain personality, certain SWOT, and certain social style. And there's nothing wrong with any of them, but we all have to adjust the way we relate to people based on all of these factors. And once we do that, we are just better relationship builders overall. So if you run into an analytical, you need to definitely respect and support their principles. Understand what they believe and what they stand for. What is it that they are trying to accomplish? And don't challenge it. In other words, don't say, well, that can never be done. Ooh, that would be a terrible thing to say to an analytical. And communicate the pros and cons of doing what they want to do, but do it in a systematic way, a bullet pointed way. Well, here's how I see it, for example. You can do this thing and this would be the consequence, or this thing and this would be the consequence. But based on all of the facts that you have given me, because believe me, an analytical is going to give you facts, And you had better be able to relate to those facts, or at least provide facts of your own if you do not think that their path is the correct one. But they want to know the pros and cons, and they want the detailed facts that you would have that might be different than their current belief. So think about that when you're thinking about analytical. Let's say you have a client and you don't necessarily agree with what they want you to do in a specific case. You better be able to say, well, here's the reasons I don't believe it, because this particular judge has decided against that particular kind of action 16 out of the last 18 times. In fact, there's 5 cases out there that say that that particular action will not prevail. And so it's in your best interest, based on these facts, to not go that route. That is the way you would communicate with an analytical. All right, demonstrate those results. Make guarantees. Obviously, as lawyers, we can never make guarantees. But if it's a situation where you can say this would be the best path, then definitely provide that information. Now, drivers, remember, these are the people who want to be in control. They want to be the leaders of the organization. They want to tell everybody else what to do. So if you have to deal with a driver, and it can be a client, or it can be a practice group leader, it can be someone that you're dealing with personally, be professional and efficient. They want you to get to the point as quickly as possible. They don't want you to waste their time. That's critically important. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about the fact that you've been sick for the last 2 weeks. They just want you to get the job done. All right. You need to establish rapport quickly, and that is not by talking about yourself. Trust me, they don't care anything about you, remember? So what you need to do is say, listen, I appreciate the opportunity to spend 10 minutes with you today and explain why this is the best path to resolution for your case. Boom. Use facts, use logic, focus on the results. As we said earlier, you might want to say something like, in my experience of trying 6 of these particular types of cases, here is what I have found. And then say, I've found X, Y, and Z. All right. Don't go into any long storytelling. They won't appreciate that. Trust me. They want to be in control. They want to be in control. So use a timeline and say, you know, I expect that we can get your matter completed by X date if I have all of the information and if things don't change substantially between now and that timeline. All right. Now, how are you going to relate to amicables that you experience? Well, those people actually want to get to know your kids. They want to know that you've been sick. They want to know where you went to college. They want to know things about you personally, and you can discuss those issues with them. In fact, you can almost build a bond with them, and it's really interesting in coaching. I, of course, deal with personality types and social styles of all different varieties. And I figure out pretty early on exactly how I need to coach people, and I adjust my coaching style to meet their needs. Now, obviously, these amicables, they want to collaborate. So I'll say, you know, hey, Jane, what if we do it this way, and get some agreement that she actually would like to do it that way. Where a driver would say, you know, I think we should do X, and the driver might say, no, I think we should do Y. And I would say, let's try Y and see how it works. Now, I know all the time that Y probably won't work, but I'm going to let that driver try Y, because here's the thing. When it doesn't work, they're going to be more willing to try X. So you have to think about things and the way that you're going to communicate with people based on these social styles. Now, these amicables, they're going to openly discuss their issues. In fact, they're the people who will talk to you for 2 hours, you know, if you'll let them go on and on. So be agreeable with them, demonstrate, you know, what you can do, demonstrate all of the options to these particular people, but don't take advantage of them. I will tell you, these are the people that are the easiest to take advantage of because they want to like you. And, you know, if your personality is not like theirs, they are very easy and very gullible. Don't do it. All right. As lawyers, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. Now, expressives. Expressives focus on relationships and facts. All right. So take the extra time to discuss all the aspects of a particular matter with them. You know, think about for example, if they want to hire you for an employment matter, you might talk about your employment practice is broad, and it's also deep. So in other words, we have a broad base of experience at our law firm. In fact, we have 36 lawyers in our practice group, and they do everything from immigration law all the way to discrimination, ADA cases, and even we have some ERISA lawyers out there. They're actually in our tax group, but if you have those kinds of needs, I just want to let you know we have that. But now what I really focus on is the Affordable Care Act and how that could impact your employees and what you need to be doing in that particular area. All right, so you want to talk about wide and you want to talk about deep. Be energetic. They like high energy. All right, summarize your main points. Give them recognition. You look great today. Gosh, this is a beautiful office. Oh, wow, look at that picture. Are those your kids? Oh, they're beautiful children. All right, now that may sound fake to you, but they enjoy the recognition. Appeal to their emotions. Ask them how they're feeling about what you're doing. Is there anything I could be doing differently or better? I know you've used other law firms, for example. What did you like best about them? Because I want to learn how to actually please you as a client. That is a great sentence for an expressive. Now, the platinum rule. What is the platinum rule? Well, we've all heard the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Well, throw that out the window. And I know it's in the Bible, and I'm a big Bible person. But having said that, the platinum rule is really a great rule for adaptive selling. And the reason it's a great rule is because you're adapting what you would normally like to have done unto you, and you're turning it into what they would like to have done unto them. So think about this for a minute. If you're a driver and you want people to just get to the point, do you really want someone to come in as your attorney and spend 10 minutes talking about their kids and how bad traffic was, and oh my gosh, I couldn't find a place to park, and then I had to park on the upper deck, and then the elevator was crowded, blah, 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 blah. No. All right, because you've identified that they're a driver, you're going to walk in and you're going to say, here's what we need to talk today, and I'm going to do this in 15 minutes, and we're going to cover these 3 points. Boom, 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 out. Okay, so that's what you do when you're utilizing the platinum rule. You're identifying their social style, and then you're customizing your communication to fit that style. So do unto others as they would like to have done unto them. Critically important in client development. So we're going to watch this video, and I'm actually going to exit out of this share for just a brief moment so that we can watch the video together. So hold on. And the question is, can you identify the style?
I've got a lot to do this afternoon. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to take care of business and be out here in a reasonable time. We'll put together a summary and document our decisions. Well, I brought this, and if nobody minds about the sound quality, it should do the job. Now, I'm sure it'll be fine, as long as we can refer to it later in case the Asia Pac team has any questions. Now, we all have an agenda and a copy of the research, so let's get started. Now, we all know the problem. How to keep TriTech, one of our largest clients, from canceling the contract on the Mark I any jumper ship.
Just a minute, Kyle, before we get too far on this, I feel one of our biggest problems is all this material.
I thought we agreed on this agenda and approach last week. We talked about the importance of getting our research together.
Well, just hear me out, Lana. Agenda and research are fine, but you have to admit this is getting completely out of hand.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's restrictive, and it always leads us down a path that is safe and boring.
Abby, we all agreed on this.
So what if we did? What we need now is something more innovative and impactful. We're not going to get that by being constrained by yesterday's agenda and reams of historical data.
My, how we exaggerate. And so you propose we toss out all our structure and direction. How productive is that going to be?
Lana has a point. We don't want to act too spontaneously, do we? I mean, we worked a very long time on getting the agendas and the background information. Wasting time, people. We need to move ahead and focus on next steps.
Exactly my point. More than ever, we need to focus on the big picture here. This market is moving very fast, but that's no reason why we should be losing clients. We either have the products and services that our customers want to buy, or our competition is going to leave us behind. That, in a nutshell, is the problem here. Getting bogged down by details is part of the problem.
These details are valid points of concern. Isn't paying attention to the little things what distinguishes us from the other guys? Overlooking the details sounds like risky business to me.
If you don't mind, I'd like to get something done today. As far as I'm concerned, the most important thing is that we just get started with something today, with or without the details. Let's develop a plan and get going on it. I've got other things to do.
Now, Kyle, I think that we've been moving pretty fast lately, and I can see where Lana's coming from. The agenda is a good starting point, and looking at the material makes a lot of sense. Now, before we go out on a limb, let's just take some time to review the data and listen to each other's ideas.
Fine. The agenda and the research are in, and we'll stay flexible. Is everyone satisfied? Can we finally start moving something forward?
Excellent, AJ. And a little more creativity in your approach wouldn't hurt next time either. I mean, after all, there's more to this world than crunching numbers. This historical data is meaningless to me. Let's try putting the wow factor into our solution this time.
Maybe if we spent a little more time number crunching, we wouldn't be the mess we're now in with TriTech.
I don't think that's very helpful. I mean, we're a team, right?
All I'm suggesting is that we don't overlook important facts and details. To make sure we're doing the right thing before we rush into a bad solution.
Nobody's overlooking facts. And we may not be as thorough as you'd like, Lana, but we don't have the time to take a microscopic look at each and every detail. We need to come up with a solution in a reasonable amount of time, or it won't matter to TriTech what our solution is. It's not a perfect world.
Fair enough. We'll shoot for reasonable.
Oh, come on, Lana. All we're asking for is a little bit of flexibility here.
Just remember, if we overlook critical information for the sake of expediency, we're all going to be paying for it in the end.
Good point, and I think we can all agree on that.
Hold on, just a minute ago you said you wanted to hear my ideas. What, now you're all of a sudden back into the details again?
See if you can identify these personalities. I'd be interested to know in the discussion forum exactly what you think they are. And I can tell you, in my opinion, you have 4 distinct social skills, And so your first person, the person who's heading up the meeting at the end of the table, and her name is Lana. She's obviously an analytical. When you see her come into the room with a big 3-ring binder full of facts, that should be your cue that you've got an analytical on your hand. On the other hand, you saw Kyle, and Kyle just wanted to get a solution and get going on a solution. He's obviously a driver, all right? And then on the other side of the table, you've got Lana, and Lana is obviously the person who is our expressive, and she's wanting to give you her opinion, share ideas, be innovative, all of those things. And then AJ, he's just wanting everybody to get along. So he is our amicable in this particular format. So it's interesting, and I would encourage you to watch. There's several of these on YouTube, and I would encourage you to watch these because it really will help you in identifying social styles. Now, as we move forward, one of the things that I want you to do is, as I said earlier, take the test yourself and identify your own social style, and then go back and look at the factors. Figure out what your dominant style is and then what your secondary style is. Think about your practice group leader. Think about your peers. Think about your staff, people you work with on a regular basis. What is their social style? And how do you need to conform your behavior in order to better communicate and relate to them? And then think about your clients as well. Are there things that you could be doing differently or better? Are there questions you could be asking? Could you be getting to the point more quickly? Could you be writing more concisely? All of those things are critically important to your success. Now, how do you improve your relationships using these social styles? Well, I will tell you, if you recognize another person's social style and you fail to accommodate to that style or accommodate your communication style or correct something, for example, you go on and on telling a story about your kids when they're a driver, they will tune you out. and you will lose credibility with them. So you need to make sure that when you walk into an office, for example, if you see someone who is highly organized, the whole desk is clean, everything is in its place. You know from the email correspondence you've done with them already that they're very concise and to the point. That means you should be concise and to the point with them. You should recognize that almost immediately. If you walk into an office, for example, and there's trophies and awards and all kinds of pictures with them with political leaders or things like that, those people want your attention. They want a leadership role. Those people are most likely people who want you to recognize them and talk to them. They're most likely amicables. And what they want you to do is figure out, you need to figure out how to ask them open-ended questions and let those people talk. All right, so those things are important for your success long term. Now, how can lawyers maximize their social styles? Well, it's interesting. There is a company out there who has done a report by industry on where lawyers actually fall in these social styles. And I will tell you, drivers make up 23% of all the legal community. Expressives make up 34% of the legal community. Amicables make up 13%, and then analyticals make up 30%. So the interesting thing about that is when you think about the different definitions of the social styles, analytical is 30%. There are a lot of people who are lawyers who got into the practice of law so they would not have to meet with clients. They actually wanted to analyze the law. They wanted to look at codes. They like compliance. They like regulations. So those are your analyticals. And then your drivers are those people who really want to work that, 2,200 hours, but they want the recognition that comes along with that. And they also want to be leadership roles and they want to cut to the point and get to the point very quickly. Your expresses, on the other hand, they're drawn to this position because they like the personal accomplishment. We talked about that earlier, and I said the person with all the pictures on the wall may be an amicable, but they could be an expressive as well. They like the recognition that comes with I'm a lawyer, all right? And the amiables are 13%, and this is actually one of the lowest percentages. They want to get along with others, all right, and find solutions. So believe it or not, that's the lowest percentage. Now, what I would encourage you to do is take a look at this report, and I've got that in your resources page, so you can download this complete report. But if you're in healthcare, for example, you want to know what is the percentage of people in healthcare that fit a particular social style. This would be a great place for you to look. So I would encourage you to take a look at that complete report and download it. It's from 2018, but I think it's still very relevant today. So recognizing social styles is important. And it's important because you do and need to modify your communication style, and you need to create connections with people based on their social style. So for example, if you want to actually get along with a driver, you're not going to invite them to a social event at your firm. You're not going to invite them to go to a baseball game. You're going to invite them to come to a webinar or invite them to come to a program that's specifically geared or targeted towards what they need to know, and that will give them that information in a very concise way. Your follow-up strategies, again, need to be formulaic towards their social style. So if they are amiable and they just want to get along with everybody, you might say to them, I wanted to follow up with you about our lunch meeting. I know you mentioned having dinner again in the next couple of weeks. I would be open to doing that, but we could also do coffee or breakfast if you would prefer to do that, because I know you have a schedule that may be somewhat it may be somewhat hard for us to get a good day for dinner. So you're trying to give them options, for example. They would like that, all right? So those are the kinds of ways that you may want to adjust your follow-up. You also need to develop your pitch strategies based on these social styles. So if you're going into a pitch and there's several people in the room, you want to know what their social style is before you go into that room, if at all possible. And many times you can tell this just by looking at their bio, and sometimes just by looking at their photograph. If they are not smiling, and if they look very tough, and if they're dressed in you know, solid colors and they're not flamboyant at all, they're probably a driver, all right, or an analytical. They're probably not an amicable or an expressive. On the other hand, if they talk about, for example, all the social clubs they're involved in or the community associations they're involved in, they actually may be an amicable or an expressive. So consider that as you're looking at different bios and getting ready for pitches. And you may want to actually adjust your team based on these styles and include people with other styles. But whoever is making that buying decision, that is the style that you want to cater to. Now, what I'm going to do is depend on you all, hopefully, to fill out your social styles worksheet. It's very important that you do that. And then what we want to do is we want to hear back from you and find out how you're using your social style. What changes have you made? What have you been able to identify? Please put that in the discussion section of this particular lesson. It would be great for us to hear from you. And please ask us questions. It's important that you ask questions because we like to answer your questions. Make sure you get active on our Facebook discussion group. I think it's a great resource for you and a great networking tool. And trust me, you may even be able to identify social styles judging from people's Facebook posts. And then download those resources. Keep them in a notebook, refer back to them frequently, and please keep up the good work. You're all doing so great in this program, and we appreciate you so much. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.